Many of us have for some years now held this beautiful vision of reestablishment of these hubs all over the world. And in those hubs are the offerings of healings. This vision has been ignited in many of us more rapidly, I would say, pioneers, the wayshowers, those of us that are being called into that mission. I want to talk about the reestablishment of Templar Guardian Hubs. And we'll go into the meaning behind the word Templar and some of these aspects that are connected to that, and also talk about some of these beautiful ways that we're being ignited to reestablish more and more guardian hubs all over this world. In a recent live stream, YouTube doesn't really like sharing my live streams. It's very bizarre. It's just maybe I don't do enough of them. That might be it. So I might actually explore that. But anyway, in that live stream, which I'm just going to pull it up here, it's illuminating pathways, anchoring in hubs for healing. And what this was about is me and my partner, my husband's journey, very personal story. And so if you're interested in that, please go check that live stream out. What I talked about in that is just our very personal experience and the trials and tribulations that this realm has upon the organic, because there's this false architecture that is placed over the organic and the original. And essentially it's made things so complicated. Those of us that are really holding in full faith and confidence, knowing that what we're creating, we're called into it. It's something that chose us and we're choosing to do. That is a very key point. And so many of you may be feeling the same thing and have been feeling it. For many years, getting dreams and visions about these nexus points, these nodes that are being created all over the world. The vision that I've had over and over and over again, it's just very simple. It's all these beacons of light anchored into the actual land are turning on more and more rapidly as time moves on. And so that is such a beautiful, amazing vision. Let's get into some of these Templar aspects, because this word Templar, if we were to get into some of the etymology, it talks about how it was a military establishment for a religious faction. That is not true. That is the false story laid on top of an organic story. It's the same thing that happened to the true and original organic druid lineage. I remember when I was little, I was extremely obsessed with that time period, and especially with the Templars. And I remember when I was watching these movies, seeing how they were portraying what the movement was about. It was horrendous and horrific. And I remember thinking, this is not it. This was not the Christed path. This was not what was happening. And that is not what Templars were doing, like the original Templars. It was a very interesting feeling to have when you're young. And that was not something that I could go and talk to anybody about. This just had to be this organic inner knowing. And then over many years of time, figuring out the truth around that and why it was so distorted. But this Templar Guardian Hub concept, so Templars were guardians, and Templars were not just a male faction. This was a group of humans who came in with specific missions, like many of us, to preserve the original and organic teachings of what this organic and original template for both human and the Earth's actual light body or energetic architecture truly is. And preserving that kind of original civilization and architecture and what creation was about was extremely vital wisdom to hold and to have and to be a guardian protector, which, by the way, the word warrior in its original meaning was actually guardian. And in fact, the word Lord means guardian. So you can do some fun research to go into the etymology of these words. And you do have to hunt because, of course, there's been like all these false layerings on top of this stuff. And so what happened is when the original Templars, they had built sacred sites all over this world. Sacred sites can be found in what we call the United States. And these predate any of the Columbus stories by a very long time. These types of sacred site builds are of stone because stone obviously was an incredible stone is an incredible technology. Just because that technology, for lack of a better word, has been forgotten, that is why the megaliths actually exist. This is powerful technology that was utilized to anchor in energetic architecture points and structures within the structures themselves all over. And this created a nexus, a web of these guardian hubs. Now, as part of this, if you get into teachings that come from things like this, the Essenes and the Cathars, which is actually where I started to gain rememberings, which I feel are very different than memories. They're actual things that turn on inside of your body and ignite codes and awakenings, and they're more than memories, like feelings and a whole slew of elements that get activated. And so the Templars were really connected into like the Essene Templar groups. And these groups were guardians built over very specific areas or regions in this realm. Now, this is very interesting too. The Templar Guardian Hubs, many of us are receiving these visions and seeing, I know I need to build a sanctuary. Like my husband and I are building essentially a sanctum in a sacred grove that we found. And if you watch that live stream, you'll see far more detail. But many of you also that are getting these messages, and perhaps you've even embarked upon this journey, maybe you've even already built, maybe you're in the stage of getting the land, whatever it is. What many of us are seeing is that we're reigniting the codes of the Templar Guardians, which goes into the Essenes, into the Cathars, into these original and organic teachings about what Christ is, which is a unity field of consciousness. And we realize that has been completely stripped in this world. And so we are being activated to rebuild that. Or the word that keeps coming up for me is reestablishing these sacred nodes in and as part of this really huge nexus that becomes, because, for example, in our region, we've met another couple that's doing the same thing, and they're probably 40 minutes from us or so. And then you have another one over here, and we're all going to be doing these different sizes with these different lens and unique ways of building these things. And so that actually, into our Mother Earth, into Gaia, we are actually anchoring or reestablishing new anchor points for this unified field of consciousness, which at the core of it all is an architecture. And that's being anchored into the body of Earth as a living being, which Earth is, and as are we, and as are all living organic creation and matter, the trees, the plants, the animals, etc., are of this realm as well. And so these beautiful sacred sites that we're creating the now time out of this chosen mission is anchoring in such a beautiful harmony, vibration, harmonic resonance within this field. We feel this and we are holding this inner knowing. But the interesting thing is what we're actually doing is, and I'm wearing Bridget's cross here, the Templars had a similar symbol, the Templar cross. When we look at crosses, what we see is a vertical and a horizontal line. So the original concepts around this, and especially for the Templars, the original ones, it's the rod and staff, dragon lines, if you will, that are all over all over the world, and are very strategic and sacred points that hold energy. This is a very simplified version of all of this. But that's actually the meaning of the Templar cross, being guardians for truth, nature, and knowledge of what that actually meant. What is a rod and what is a staff? That's why we see so much of that embedded into magicians or wizards or whatever would always have a staff or a rod of some kind. And these are the kinds of things that have been lost for the most part in terms of the wisdom of that. But these are Christed, energetic rod and staff elements that are holding these qualities that actually anchor in the organic architecture of this realm. The organic creation and the original creation codes have obviously been quite destroyed. And so now, as we feel all of these rising energies, and what's really happening is that we are all being ignited to be able to see that when we're creating these beautiful points of devotion for God, Source, for the aspects of the Holy Mother or Holy Father aspect, and Earth, and humanity serving as those bridges. We're really anchoring heaven. We're bringing heaven into Earth. This is this biggest and most beautiful establishment of this energy and this architecture. These templates are not just within the earth, they're within ourselves. So we are first being initiated, as you may well be experiencing or have experienced, initiated through first anchoring the original template and codes and elements into our own bodies. Then it's the phase of anchoring and creating these and establishing these into the earth. So then we are physically building these points and reestablishing these guardian hubs once again, anchoring and reestablishing, being protected in what we could say a before time. Part of this Christic path is powerful rememberings, a full-on igniting of everything vibrationally in the body. There are connections into the Grail and these kinds of conversations, which I won't get into this time. But the reason why many of these guardian hubs have been destroyed or something has been layered on top of it that is part of this false architecture, and that layering over is obviously to try to further destroy and not allow humans to anchor into those sites or be within those sites. And that's why they're very controlled in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things happening in sacred sites all over this world. And it's important to see what's happening, because then we know exactly where we're at in this entire process, which means when something doesn't want to allow another being to go into a sacred site anymore, that means what we know is that those sites are being incredibly empowered. If you're holding these visions of this beautiful Templar, a templated architecture, and you're seeing these energetic points all over the world being ignited, this is the power of knowing and anchoring in this guardian aspect. And these hubs are just way more than physical buildings. We're actually building and creating sacred sites in new ways. And so, because it's bringing in the organic intention that's automatically flowing through you, And that is the power of having that inner knowing of what this next huge step truly is, which from my lens, we are seeing this more and more. And it's such a beautiful realization to be able to see these kinds of things happening, because that allows us to move through. And like I had talked about in the live stream, which really was talking about holding reverence for the process, knowing, cultivating our energy, because we need to be able to actually feel and hold the higher frequencies. Also, having faith and confidence in the process that no, we're not crazy. We are, as is connected to your visions, we are all receiving these similar visions for the profound reason in which I just talked about, which is reestablishing these guardian hubs and taking our rightful place to build the organic and original templates and assisting in this process. I hope that this video helps to reestablish some of the beautiful magic that is awakening and that we are connected in these ways. That's the gorgeous ability of frequencies bringing us together to connect more and more. For those of us that are part of this soul family, the Christed unification consciousness, and seeing that there's more and more of that rising every single day. Please subscribe if you would like to receive notifications of new videos that I put out. And if this resonates with you, give it a share.